No, darling, you're right. You're right.
We're so happy to have you. Whenever you're on with us, we're great.
You got introduced as our friend Donald Trump.
That's right.
Whoopi Goldberg gives you a big hug and a kiss. Joy Behar gives you a big hug. Barbara Walters gives you a big hug. They all love.
In this video, Joe Rogan takes direct aim at The View, delivering a blistering critique of its hosts, especially Whoopi Goldberg, accusing them of outright hypocrisy. He recalls how these same women once gushed over Donald Trump, treating him like a friend on air and even encouraging his interest in running for president. Now, they brand him a national threat, calling him divisive and dangerous. Rogan frames this sudden reversal as political trend-chasing, not moral conviction, arguing that Trump's character has hardly changed, but the media narrative has. He challenges them to invite Trump back for an unfiltered, unscripted debate, though he doubts they will, fearing the loss of control over their carefully managed storyline.
You know who made a campaign stop on the Joe Rogan podcast Friday night? And with all the issues Americans are going to be voting on, you know where they started the interview? Take a look.
It was the episode of you when you were on The View. And I think it was 2015 or 2006, like when you were running for president.
Right.
Okay, let's stop there. There's a lot of fake news coming up, so we're going to clear some of it up as it happens. He was actually, in that clip, is 2011, 4 years before he announced he was running. Okay? That's the first thing they got wrong.
Joe Rogan exposes how The View once treated Donald Trump with warmth and admiration, particularly pointing to Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar, who publicly called him a friend and encouraged his presidential ambitions. Rogan uses this history to highlight what he sees as the staggering hypocrisy in their current stance. Now they condemn him as a dangerous figure, but Rogan insists the real change lies not in Trump himself but in the shifting winds of political fashion. He questions whether The View hosts truly believe what they now preach, or if they are just echoing the prevailing narrative to stay relevant. Rogan argues that the sudden hostility is not born out of deep conviction, but out of fear of being cancelled or left behind by the cultural elites.
You got introduced as our friend Donald Trump.
That's right.
Whoopi Goldberg gives you a big hug and a kiss. Joy Behar gives you a big hug. Barbara Walters gives you a big hug. They all loved you.
So, here's the actual appearance. Watch.
Donald Trump is a billionaire, a real estate mogul, and a television star. But does he really want to add President of the United States to his resume? A lot of people would like him to. Please, let's find out, and please welcome my friend, Donald Trump.
No, darling, you're right. You're right.
We're so happy to have you. Whenever you're on with us, we're very happy.
But did I look?
Joe Rogan calls out The View for what he sees as blatant hypocrisy, reminding audiences that Whoopi Goldberg once treated Donald Trump with warmth and even encouraged his presidential run. Back then, they called him a friend. Now, they denounced him as a dangerous threat. Rogan argues the real change isn't in Trump's character, but in the political winds, and the hosts need to stay aligned with the fashionable narrative of the moment. He questions whether their outrage is genuine, or just performance, fueled by fear of being cancelled or losing favor with cultural elites.
Barbara, you know, she said be polite to guests no matter what. Yes. And for the most part, I got through. I did it like I do now. But here's where they really messed up. Watch.
They're talking about you as such a favorable light.
Honey, Joe, I think you missed this part. Take a look.
I want him to show his birth certificate. There's something on that birth certificate that he doesn't like.
Oh my God.
That
is just
Whoopi, I'm telling you.
3 pounds.
I love you. I'm telling
I love you too. I think that's the biggest pile of dog mess I've heard in ages.
There's something on the birth certificate he doesn't want to show.
It's not because it's
Let him show. Has nothing to do with it.
When you become a president of the United States of America.
Joe Rogan takes aim at the woke language often used by The View hosts, calling it more performance than principle. He singles out Whoopi Goldberg, noting her claims that marginalized groups don't want to be spoken down to and that the show has always stood against injustice. Rogan dismisses this as scripted virtue signaling, pointing to their once friendly relationship with Donald Trump as proof that their values shift with the political winds. If they truly cared about consistent principles, he argues, they would have called out Trump's behavior long before he entered politics, but they didn't. To Rogan, their current outrage is trend-driven activism, not moral conviction, fueled more by fear of falling out of step with the cultural moment than by genuine integrity.
He did for years, which is why people got up and said, you can't talk to me like this anymore. You can't talk about me like this anymore. And people said, oh, you're woke. We have never been asleep. No one's ever let us sleep because we've had to keep, because we've had to keep reminding people that women don't want to be spoken down to. Gay folks don't want to be spoken down to. Straight folks don't want to be spoken to. People don't want to be spoken down to. They don't want to be made fun of. Get a better gig. If you're a comic, be funnier. Find a different way than to come after people because of their heritage, which they are born into. It is not a choice. You are who you are.
Right.
And here you want to make all kind of fun. People said no more. We're tired of that. That's why people are saying right there, you heard the women say, listen, what we heard at that rally should be enough to shake folks awake, because he's talking about.
Joe Rogan takes apart the broad accusations that Donald Trump is dismissive toward minority communities, challenging Whoopi Goldberg and the rest of the View panel to provide concrete examples instead of vague rhetoric. He points out that while the media relentlessly labels Trump as divisive, they rarely offer real evidence to support the claim. Rogan goes further, arguing that in recent years Trump has shown more inclusivity than some mainstream Democrats, drawing comparisons to figures whom he accuses of talking down to the public. If The View truly stands by its criticisms, Rogan says, they should invite Trump onto the show and confront him directly, put their words to the test in an open exchange. But he doubts they'll take that risk, believing they fear Trump might seize control of the conversation and sway public opinion. In Rogan's view, the hosts prefer the safety of an unchallenged narrative over the unpredictability of real debate.
Okay, let's
You know that he's
Let him
American.
show
I'm
his
sorry, that's
versatility.
BS. Look, this show has allowed all kinds of people to come on. People we agree with, people we don't agree with. I've not been a fan of this man's. I don't like how he talks to us. I don't like how he talks to the nation. So I have not really had much to say until he started running for president. Then I could say everything I needed to say. My face said everything.
That was a good side eye.
Didn't
My
you say you
face.
disliked him from even before that when you first had an encounter with him?
Well, he's been in New York
Yes.
forever. He's a New York person and been a New York character.
Joe Rogan seizes the moment to launch a sharp critique of cancel culture, calling it both shallow and hypocritical. He highlights how figures like Donald Trump were once welcomed and even celebrated by the same personalities who now vilify him, arguing that this reversal is driven less by moral conviction and more by the desire to remain popular. Whoopi Goldberg, accusing her of abandoning Trump not out of principle, but to align with shifting cultural trends. He portrays cancel culture as a system where public figures are discarded the moment they stray from approved narratives, warning that such practices erode authenticity and critical thinking. In Rogan's view, The View exemplifies this trend-trading consistency for applause and turning on those they once praised simply because it has become politically expedient.